Hey everybody, so in this video I wanted to talk about my history with HHT. So to start off with, I all throughout middle school and high school was really involved in athletics. I did volleyball, basketball, track, softball, and as I was getting older, I was finding it harder and harder to do the same activities of these sports. I couldn't run for as long, and I was having trouble breathing. I felt like I was going to pass out, and it just kept getting worse as I got older. And I was like, okay, this is kind of ridiculous, but whatever. So one summer I was helping with a basketball camp, and I wasn't really doing anything special. I was just helping the kids, and I go and I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna pass out. I'm having trouble breathing. So I step outside and I have to lay on the ground, otherwise I know I'm gonna fall. And I just start shaking uncontrollably, and I'm absolutely sweating profusely, and I just have all this heat coming off my body, and I'm trying to focus on my breathing, and eventually somebody comes out, and they realize they need to call 911. Well, in the time that this was going on, the time they got there, they were trying to tell me to focus on my breathing. And it goes from a point where I'm breathing so much, and then all of a sudden I basically just stop breathing and I shut down. And that's when I feel like I'm really gonna pass out, and people have to keep talking to me because, um, I gotta keep conscientious thoughts going. So they were doing that, and, then my body just got super cold, and all the sweat dried basically at once, and I'm shivering cold, and eventually the ambulance gets there, and they take me into the biggest town hospital there. And no, by the time I got there I felt better, but they decided they were going to run CAT scan or MRI, something, I don't really remember, and they found this about golf ball, maybe baseball, no, not quite baseball, but a little bit bigger than golf ball size lump on the bottom of my left lung. It was pretty significant, and we asked them about it, and they said, well, she just had it since she was young, it doesn't look like it's growing, so we're just gonna leave it. And I left. And that whole summer, I was like, something doesn't feel right. Something does not feel right. And this was in between my freshman and sophomore year, I believe. So I just kept thinking, I kept having problems. I'm like, what about this lump on my lung? That's kind of scary, but, nobody was really listening to me. So I just had to deal with it. I had two more incidences where I had to take the ambulance to the hospital. Finally, on the third time, did the ER doctor, she was like, you know what? We're actually going to take a look at this. And that's when she came back and she's like, you have a pulmonary arterial venous malformation, or PAVM. And this is caused by HHT. And we had no idea what that was. And just the anger I had, I was so angry. I was like, I've been dealing with this thing all summer. You knew about this like 4 months ago, because I went to the same hospital every time this happened. And it took 3 times going to the emergency room for somebody to finally take a freaking look at it, That's so frustrating. And God, I'm still so angry about it. I am. And they say to let anger go, but geez, that kind of ignorance is what gets people hurt. And I'm sure, for the people with HHT out there who have died or had serious problems, I'm sure that somebody saw something and decided it wasn't serious enough to fix. And so somebody, their life, So after dealing with that, I went to the doctor then several times to describe what this was, to see if I had problems with my heart. And eventually I went down to a hospital down in Denver, and they embolized the lump in my chest. So this pulmonary arterial venous malformation is a place where my artery and my vein connect. The capillaries are just gone. They're not there. You're not getting that blood flow and oxygenation that you need. It's just one going to another. So you have, quick or fast flowing blood all of a sudden into a slow part, and you get all this backup, and that's what creates this thing. And if you don't fix it, it could burst. So that's why it's so frustrating. So basically, they took this cord through, they went in through a vein in my groin, took it all the way up my torso, and found a way to put it in my chest, released this coil in there, and it had these fibers on it basically that allows the blood to clot. So I had that done. Well, my first time going in there, I have on my record that I am pretty allergic to nickel. Like, I break out really bad. I cannot have jewelry with nickel in it. And right before they put me under, they were talking about this coil, and I was like, well, I'm allergic to nickel, right? And they said, oh, you are? We didn't know that. So they almost put a object in my body that's staying in there forever that I'm highly allergic to. So that is extremely frustrating. And so then they had to go in with platinum. But the problem with these platinum coils is if they're ejected wrong, you can't pull them back out. It's a one-time deal. So thankfully, they got it in good, and I healed up. But, oh, the pain that came afterward was horrible. I was out almost that whole volleyball season, and the next couple days following, of course, my groin was sore from the injection site, but my lung, basically, since that part was creating a blood clot there and not allowing the blood and nutrients to flow into this mass, that part of my lung was dying. So if you can just imagine something in your body dying, just slowly dying due to loss of blood and oxygen, it was very painful. I can't even describe it. And it was just constant, because this is just a slow process happening. So I eventually healed up, but I was still having problems. And so they checked. Well, I still had leakage going through there. So I had to go down to Denver for a second time, and they put a second coil in. And this time was a lot better, but it, finally closed it off. Well, when they found this one in my brain, they found two small, or sorry, the one in my lung, they found two small ones in my brain. And they're about here. And they are too small to treat at this point. But the problem with small AVMs is they are more likely to burst. So my chances of having a stroke are higher, I guess you could say. It's like, do you go through a surgery that probably wouldn't fix it and have complications there, or do you just kind of try and monitor it basically and hope nothing bad happens? So that is what we have done. And here I am, a sophomore in college, and I get migraines from the ones in my brain. I definitely do. And, sometimes I still get sharp pains in my chest. And so, that's kind of my history of where it started, and then after, we found out about me having it, then they had my dad and my sister tested. And since it was hereditary, my mom wouldn't have had it, and she didn't show any of the same signs. But, part of the problems that HHT causes is, so you can probably see this plug, nosebleeds. Don't have to get hit in the nose. I don't have to, break it or anything. I just get nosebleeds constantly. Sometimes after I blow my nose, sometimes I'm literally doing nothing and it just starts to bleed. Sometimes a couple hours. I've had one lasting up to 3 hours before, and sometimes it bleeds so heavily I have to use cotton balls and change them every minute, every couple minutes. And of course, cotton is going to absorb a lot more than just a normal tissue does. So that's the extent of, kind of the blood loss there. And then I get, besides the AVMs, little capillaries under my skin that burst. And that's why I get these nosebleeds, is those capillaries are just constantly bursting. And I could get it cauterized, but a lot of the times you get new ones that form constantly, and it doesn't always solve the problem. So I don't really feel like going through the pain of getting it cauterized or the money to do that when I don't know if it would help or not. And then I get, see if you can see that or not, right there on my finger, those red spots. Those are little things that have bursted. I get them on my hands, on the inside of my lips. Probably can't see any. But anyway, that's kind of what happens. Those are the things that form. This was from a rope burn a long time ago. It just stayed there. So yeah, that's my history dealing with it, and the anger and pain. And so, if I ever find out anything new, I'll be sure to add it. But thank you for watching, and please check out my other videos, as this is a kind of series of videos describing my life with HHT. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks. Bye.